The 80s was a time when the arcade was king. In this era, you couldn't find graphics or gameplay quite like that of the arcades anywhere else. Consoles, of course, did their best to try and emulate this, but today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 80s arcade games. There are so many great games to choose from, so just know that if some of your favorites didn't make the cut, I still probably love them, they just aren't my favorites. Remember to like, subscribe, and share the video, and let me know your favorite 80s arcade games in the comments below. Now let's begin.
Number 10.
Burning Force is a super scaling shooter similar to Space Harrier, where you play as this girl on her badass jet bike, taking on hordes and hordes of enemies. Each location is split into 3 stages representing a single day, and in the 3rd stage of each day, you get to dock your jet bike into this badass flying war machine to take on the boss. I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but with its power-ups and slightly easier difficulty, I actually enjoy this game a bit more than Space Harrier. I feel like you have a bit more time to react, and with the first 2 stages of each area having you confined to the ground, makes it a bit easier to line up your shots. All in all, Burning Force is a great arcade game and deserves its place at number 10. If you've never heard of this game before and want to give it a go, there's a really good version of it on the Genesis that you can check out.
Number 9.
To me, 1981's Galaga is an absolute timeless classic. But Galaga 88 is a little bit better in every single way. You can start off the game using the double ship right off the bat at the cost of one of your lives. The enemies in this version are much more colorful and animated, and the movement doesn't feel quite as stiff as it does in the original. Everything you loved about Galaga is here. Sure, you could say Galaga 88 is just a simple shoot 'em up, but that's honestly a big part of what makes it so good. This is a game that I can come back to at any time, fire it up, and enjoy. In fact, most of the games in this video have that appeal, which is why I love to fire them up and play them so often.
Number 8.
Prehistoric Isle is an SNK side-scrolling shoot-'em-up where you pilot your 1930s airplane and take on shit tons of prehistoric dinosaurs, cavemen, and more. You get a rotating turret that functions differently depending on which angle you choose to fire it at, which adds a nice edge to the game. I really love the level designs, gameplay, and most importantly, the boss fights in this game. It is quite challenging, but Prehistoric Isle's fun factor more than makes up for its difficulty. I love finding the best weapons to deal with each area in the game, and trying out all the different turret angles on the different enemies and bosses. Every time I play it, I get a little bit further, and it just feels so damn rewarding.
Number 7.
When Sega's Fantasy Zone came out in 1986, it was an instant classic. Bending the rules of what a sideways shoot-'em-up could be, Fantasy Zone gives you the ability to move around its large stages freely, as well as to collect cash and spend it on upgrades at the shops. The large colorful worlds of Fantasy Zone are chock full of enemies and bases that spawn them that you must destroy in order for the bosses to show up. I love the feeling of finally taking down a difficult boss and watching them explode into cash that you've got to quickly grab before the stage ends. Saving up your money for upgrades and extra lives adds a bit of strategy to the game as well, since some of the power-ups only last for a limited time. All this and the big plot twist at the end of the game makes Fantasy Zone my 7th favorite arcade game from the 1980s.
Number 6.
I don't care what you say, when it comes to arcade games in the 80s, nothing is more fast-paced and action-packed than Afterburner 2. Coming out the year I was born, Afterburner 2 used all the technology available at the time to make you feel like you're blasting across the sky at the speed of sound, gunning down waves of enemies in your fighter jet. You've got to be on your toes to make it all the way to the end of this one, but it's totally worth it. You've got missiles that can be launched once you lock onto various different enemies, but in between firing your rockets, you've got your machine gun that can be used to manually gun dudes down. For being one of the most exciting games to play, Afterburner 2 blasts by at number 6. If you want to play its equivalent on home console, the best way to go about it is Afterburner Complete for the Sega 32X.
Number 5.
Dragon Spear is a game I played a lot on the TurboGrafx 16, and it wasn't until I started playing games on the Antstream streaming service that I found out it was actually an arcade game. In Dragon Spirit, you play as this badass dude who turns into a dragon in order to save his princess. It's a top-down shoot-'em-up where you can attack both things in the sky and on the ground below. The coolest thing to me as an old Godzilla and King Ghidorah fan is how the power-ups work. You shoot these eggs and some of them will power up your fire blast, whereas others will allow you to grow an extra head or two, giving you much more firepower to take down your countless enemies. This game is hard as heck, but fear not, you're able to skip ahead to some of the stages you've been to as long as you still got some credits left. The best way to play this game on home console is still on the TurboGrafx 16. I recently found out there is a port on the NES, but it pales in comparison. Really, why settle for less when you can just register for free on Antstream and play the real thing on your PC or Android device? No, this is not a paid promotion, I just love playing these classic arcade games on Antstream.
Number 4.
At number 4 is the best beat-em-up game from the 80s, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This game is so much fun. I remember playing this one with my friends at Rutgers as a kid and having an absolute blast. TMNT is one of the most timeless beat-em-up games as it holds up just as well now as it did back in the 80s. In fact, out of all the games on this list, if you were to walk into any arcade anywhere, this is the one that has the highest odds of being there. All 4 turtles team up to rescue Splinter, April, and destroy Shredder and the Technodrome. Each and every stage in here is iconic, and there's nothing like hanging out with a bunch of friends and plowing through the Foot Clan. The controls are tight, the boss fights are epic, and the graphics are among the best from that era. All these reasons and more are why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is so high up on the list. The best way to play this one on home console is of course TMNT 2, the arcade game for the NES. It's taken a massive graphical downgrade, but the gameplay is still excellent, and they've added some extra stages and boss fights.
Number 3.
Another Space Harrier-inspired game that is leagues above Space Harrier itself. In Night Striker, you have to save a professor and his daughter while taking out some terrorists in this futuristic world, piloting a flying car with a giant blaster. The stages, multiple different paths, and gameplay are all incredible. Night Striker is like if you combine Space Harrier with Outrun, and I just absolutely love everything about it. You're quite literally flying by the seat of your pants with all the fast-paced action, and you feel a lot more in control than you do in Space Harrier due to there being far less obstacles that you can crash into. I love the different boss fights as well. Once you've beaten the game, you just want to keep on playing as there are a ton of different endings. In fact, each final stage transforms your vehicle into a different special form to deal with the specifics of the stage and its final boss fight. If you want to play this great game on home console, unfortunately it was never released outside of Japan, but you can find a copy of it on the PS1, Sega CD, and Sega Saturn, with Night Striker S on the Sega Saturn being the best way to go.
Number 2.
You knew it had to be in here somewhere, but you didn't know where. Outrun is easily my second favorite arcade game from the 1980s. Its super chill atmosphere yet challenging race against the clock makes it a timeless classic. This is probably the arcade game I've played the most out of any other, as it just never gets old to me. The music, the visuals, the speed, and the vibe are unmatched by any other driving game. My biggest regret is never actually being able to play this in the car-styled sit-down arcade cabinet. It's one of my bucket list items, so if you know about any arcades that still have one, please let me know in the comments, as I'm legitimately willing to make a special trip just to experience this game the way it was meant to be played. For being my favorite driving game from the 80s, and just all around one of the greatest arcade games of all time, Outrun stands strong at the number 2 position. If you want to play the best version of this game on home console, pick this up on the Switch. It plays exactly like the arcade version, with a couple little perks that help you out, and if you want to check out some other Outrun games, check out my top 10 Outrun games video, where I talk about the 10 best Outrun games on home console.
Number 1.
Number 1 is a game that I can pick up at any time and have a hard time putting it down without playing through the entire thing. I'm talking about quite possibly the greatest sideways scrolling shoot 'em up of all time, UN Squadron. UN Squadron is another game that pretty much every arcade everywhere always makes sure to have. Every time I go to Japan, I always manage to find this bad boy in an arcade and have to sit my ass down and play it to completion. This game has 3 different characters, all with their own perks and downsides, with Mickey being my favorite due to his wide irregular shots. I just love the art style, the tight gameplay, and all the different power-ups, bosses, and stages. Each character even has their own unique and lovable personality. This game is an absolute masterpiece. I've yet to find a sideways shoot 'em up that I prefer over it, so of course it had to make the number 1 spot on the list. It's crazy to think that a game that looks and plays so damn good came out of the 80s, as this game's graphics and gameplay holds up against any great game from today. There's literally nothing I don't like about this game. There is a Super NES port of the game that's actually really well done, so if you're looking to play this one at home, it's the best route to go. I do have a few great honorable mentions, but before that I'd like to remind you to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and possibly check out some of my other top 10 videos as well. It helps grow the channel, and I'm trying to get to 300 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, on to the honorable mentions. First up is an absolute classic in Bubble Bobble. I remember playing this one at the bowling alley all the time, while my friends who didn't suck ass at bowling were off actually bowling. They had a copy of the game that was stuck in free play mode, so I could play as long as I wanted. Its legendary simple gameplay still stands up today. Next up is Snow Bros, a game that was inspired by Bubble Bobble. In Snow Bros, you have to throw snowballs at enemies until they turn into a giant snowball that you can then roll into other enemies to take them out and get food for points. I always played this one when my family would go camping, because the local park had it in its convenience store, and I'm not really a big beach bum. I love the boss fights and how you have to dodge incoming attacks while turning them into attacks of your own to roll into the gigantic bosses. Finally, I had to mention Space Harrier, as there were a bunch of different games in my top 10 that were inspired by this classic super scaling shoot 'em up. Space Harrier is a great fast-paced shooter where you play as a dude with a jetpack who takes on droves and droves of enemies. I really enjoy the boss fights, but this game gets hard as heck really fast, and can turn into a quarter eater right away. I honestly prefer the much slower and simpler Master System port, as it feels like you have more time to maneuver to both dodge and deal damage. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one. If you use Twitch, be sure to check me out 3 nights a week at twitch.tv/Dookie03, where I'm mostly playing JRPGs. Thanks again for watching, and have a great rest of your day.